All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. We're breaking down the absolute mechanics of building habits that actually stick and how to finally get unstuck. Now, here's a wild statistic for you. By February 1st, a staggering 80% of New Year's resolutions have already completely failed. 80%! We are looking at a total paradigm shift today, moving way away from that conventional wisdom we've all been spoon-fed about success and diving into the actual underlying architecture of human behavior. So, if you've ever felt like you're just spinning your tires trying to make a change only to become one of those February 1st statistics, you are exactly who this explainer is for.
So, I want you to ask yourself a really honest question right now. Why does it feel so incredibly frustrating to repeatedly fall back into the exact same negative patterns? We all know that awful sinking feeling. You declare, okay, this time is going to be different. You swear you're going to eat healthier, or read more, or finally kick procrastination to the curb. And then, a few weeks later, you are right back where you started. Why does that keep happening?
Well, the answer lies in something called the psychological wall. See, we've all been conditioned to think, hey, if I just want this badly enough, my motivation will push me across the finish line. But relying on raw motivation? That's literally the trap. Motivation is just an emotional state. Relying on it is like relying on a smartphone battery in freezing cold weather. It is going to die right when you need it the absolute most. When you hit that psychological wall, when you're exhausted, stressed out, or just having a terrible day, your motivation completely evaporates. If motivation is your only engine, your progress is going to completely halt the second you run out of gas.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover the psychology of habits, the compounding effect, systems versus goals, the 4 laws of behavior change, and finally, breaking your bad habits.
Starting things off with Section 1, the psychology of habits. Let's unpack what's really happening beneath the surface.
Here's the honest truth. Your past failures, they aren't because you lack willpower. It's actually just a fundamental misunderstanding of how habit psychology works. We constantly beat ourselves up, thinking we're just undisciplined. But the reality is that highly disciplined people don't actually have some magical bottomless tank of willpower. They just understand the mechanics better than the rest of us. Instead of relying on brute force self-control, they actively engineer their daily lives and environments to avoid temptation altogether. They know that permanent change takes a mechanical approach, not an emotional one.
Moving right along to Section 2, the compounding effect. Let's look at the mathematical reality of what you do every day.
You have to start thinking about your daily actions just like compound interest in a bank account. A tiny, microscopic improvement doesn't feel like much on a random Tuesday, right? But the math here is absolutely staggering. If you can get just 1% better each day for a whole year, you literally end up 37 times better by the time you're done. 37 times. On the flip side, if you get 1% worse each day, you decline almost down to 0. Over the course of months and years, those compounding actions create a massive, undeniable gap between who you were and who you are becoming. You are, quite literally, the sum total of your tiny, repeated actions.
Which perfectly tees up Section 3, systems versus goals. This right here is the crucial paradigm shift of our entire explainer. Because we really have to ask ourselves, why does obsessing over a massive goal rarely lead to actual permanent behavior change? Think about a marathon. Every single runner on that starting line has the exact same goal, right? To win. Well, if the winners and the losers share the exact same goal, then the goal itself absolutely cannot be the thing that separates them. A goal is just a temporary destination. It tells you zero about how to actually make the journey. This is why you have to completely stop fixating on the goal itself and instead build your own system. Let's call it the Goals OS. See, goals focus strictly on the outcome you want, which makes them inherently temporary. Systems focus on the ongoing, daily processes that actually create lasting change. What does that look like? It looks like a writer focusing entirely on sitting at their desk for 20 minutes every single morning rather than agonizing over publishing a bestseller. If you completely ignored your big goal and only focused on your daily operating system, would you still succeed? The answer is a resounding yes. Fix the inputs, and the outputs will absolutely fix themselves.
So how do we actually build that system? That brings us to Section 4, the 4 laws of behavior change.
These 4 laws, make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying, are your essential toolkit. Think of this as the ultimate instruction manual for rewiring your brain. To master this, you have to understand the core habit loop that drives all human behavior: cue, craving, response, and reward. Every single habit follows that exact 4-step pattern.
So whenever you want to build a new positive habit, you just run it through this 4-step checklist. If a habit isn't sticking, I guarantee you, one of these 4 laws is being broken.
Let's break them down. Law 1 tackles the cue by telling you to make it obvious. We always think we lack motivation, but honestly, what we usually lack is clarity. Want to drink more water? Don't just vaguely tell yourself to do it. Fill up a massive jug and put it smack in the middle of your desk where you literally cannot ignore it. You have to design your environment so the right choice is the most glaringly obvious thing in the room.
Moving on to Law 2, dealing with the craving, you've got to make it attractive. Listen, we are biologically hardwired to chase dopamine, so you have to pair an action you need to do with an action you want to do. It's called temptation bundling. If you want to exercise more, maybe you make a rule that you only get to listen to your absolute favorite true crime podcast while you're physically on the treadmill. By linking a habit to an immediate reward, you make the behavior incredibly magnetic.
Then we hit Law 3, tackling the response. You must make it easy. Human beings are naturally drawn to the path of least resistance. It's just how we're built. So if there are too many steps between you and your good habit, you just won't do it. Shrink it down. Don't aim to read a whole book a week. Aim to read exactly 1 page a night. You have to master the art of simply showing up before you even worry about optimizing the performance. And finally, Law 4 nails down the reward phase. Make it satisfying. What gets immediately rewarded gets repeated. What gets immediately punished gets avoided. You have to engineer a genuine feeling of success right after you finish your habit. Something as old school as crossing a task off a physical calendar, the whole don't break the chain strategy, or dropping a physical marble into a glass jar. That gives your brain this immediate tactile hit of satisfaction, which closes the loop and locks the habit firmly in place for tomorrow.
Okay, but what about the negative stuff? That's Section 5, breaking your bad habits by inverting the laws. The secret here is inversion. You literally just flip those 4 laws upside down to systematically dismantle that psychological wall we talked about earlier. You want to break a bad habit? Do the exact opposite of building one. Make it invisible by hiding the junk food or just deleting the app from your phone entirely. Make it unattractive by actively highlighting the negative consequences. Then make it ridiculously hard. Don't just move the TV remote, literally unplug the TV and take the batteries out of the remote after every single use, so turning it on is a massive chore. And finally, make it unsatisfying by creating immediate, painful penalties for failure. You are essentially just hacking your own operating system.
So I want to leave you with this thought today. Because honestly, consuming this explainer is completely useless unless you actually do something with it. What is the very first small, undeniable action you will take right now to trigger your own compounding effect? Seriously, don't wait for tomorrow. Look at your new Goals OS, pick one tiny, obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying thing you can do right this very second, and go initiate your system.